Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to be in Paris at the first European Asset Management Congress and to discuss your industry's work, which is so important for investment in Europe. As we focus on strengthening Europe's recovery, on supporting growth, you have an important role to play. Today, I would like to explain our approach to maintaining a dynamic, competitive, and safe asset management sector in the European Union. To touch on the problems we have identified, often thanks to your input, and to mention some of the actions we are considering to knock down barriers to cross-border investment, promote competition, and give consumers more protection, information, and choice. The EU asset management industry is a success story of which Europe can be proud. UCITS funds are a global brand. In 2016, there were more than 30,000 of them, with 8 trillion euros of assets under management, and there were 27,000 alternative investment funds managing over 5 trillion euros of assets. France has been a particularly strong contributor, home to over 11,000 funds and over 600 asset managers, 4 of which are ranked in the world's top 20. It is a leading player. France was the first European country to authorize European long-term investment funds to increase the capital available for long-term investment. And it moved fast to establish an attractive and competitive environment for fintech. Yet we believe there remains untapped potential for asset managers in a single market. Unleashing this potential is part of our work to build a capital markets union. We want to knock down barriers to investment, ensure companies can sell into bigger markets, and enable consumers to find the products that are right for them wherever they are in the EU. Only 40% of alternative investment funds are marketed across borders. 1/3 of UCITS marketed across borders are only sold in one other country, and another third is sold to the maximum 4 other countries. We might be missing out on economies of scale from which our funds should benefit in a single market. While the average European mutual fund is valued at approximately 200 million euros, its counterparts in the US are almost 7 times as large. This creates challenges for fund costs and returns. This summer, we launched a consultation to gather more detail on the barriers to a genuine single market. Your contributions will shape follow-up actions to improve the existing European passport regime for investment funds. The consultation closed on Sunday, and we are now busy analyzing your responses. We are considering all options, including making legislative changes to AIFMD and UCITS legislation. Let me say a bit more about some of the areas upon which we have sought your views. Formal regulatory fees in each member state are a clear barrier. The fees and level of guidance vary considerably. There is no central register of where and to whom funds can be marketed. Finding out what fees are and how they should be paid takes longer and is more expensive than it should be. Different tax regimes and reporting requirements in 28 different formats complicate things further, as do antiquated administrative requirements. In this digital age, is it really necessary for UCITS managers who want to market their products abroad to appoint a paying agent to collect fees and to be a point of contact? Domestic marketing rules can be very different across countries, especially for products aimed at retail investors. Even when the rules are similar, they are enforced in different ways and to different schedules. In spite of the EU marketing passport, an asset manager based in France who wants to market products across Europe has to comply with 27 other marketing regimes. This is time-consuming and legal fees are expensive. Marketing materials often need to be checked by national authorities, which can be an open-ended, lengthy process. In these circumstances, we understand that managers respond by marketing their products in fewer countries. But it is suboptimal for businesses and for consumers in a single market, even if we must ensure consumers in local markets are adequately protected. As part of the Capital Markets Union, the European Commission is also working to strengthen Europe's venture capital markets to increase scale, diversity and choice. We are looking at how we can use public money to attract more private investment with a pan-European venture capital fund of funds. And in July, we made a proposal to reform the European venture capital and European social entrepreneurship funds. This would open them up to larger asset managers and broader range of eligible investments. The proposal is now with national governments in the Council of Ministers and the European Parliament. The onus is on them to get this agreed by the end of the year and to help high potential businesses get the financing they need to grow and create jobs in Europe. We want the Capital Markets Union to provide more options for people who want to save for their retirement. As a first step, we have launched a public consultation. We will use it to determine whether it's possible to create a competitive and simple cross-border personal pensions product. We will look carefully at the responses we received and set out how we move forward in this area. We are keeping all options open, including proposing a new legislation. Across the board, the European Commission is committed to reviewing all existing financial services legislation to check if it is working as intended and it is as growth-friendly as possible. Our work to improve the environment for asset managers will draw on our analysis to your responses to the call for evidence. We will publish a detailed assessment by the end of the year. The main thrust of our analysis is clear. We need to consider adjustments to increase funding to the wider economy. We need to look at whether we can make legislation more proportionate and see whether the compliance burden can be reduced for businesses. Let me say a little more about some of the areas relevant to the asset management industry. The call for evidence highlighted an inconsistency between legislation governing UCITS and the European Market Infrastructure Regulation, or EMIR. This is when it comes to the UCITS funds exposure limits to investments in derivatives. UCITS legislation predates EMIR and does not make the distinction between derivatives which go through central clearing and those which do not. UCITS funds investments in less risky cleared derivatives are unduly limited, which goes against the EMIR's objectives. We also understand that not being able to use cash proceeds from repo transactions to post margins for cleared derivative transactions is felt to be a too rigid of approach. We have asked ESMA to look into these concerns further. We are also looking very carefully at whether a more proportionate approach could be taken to rules governing remuneration for asset managers. At the moment, rules differ across EU legislation under the Capital Requirements Regulation, UCITS, AIFMD, and MiFID. This makes compliance difficult, and the European Commission is committed to trying to streamline requirements when we review the relevant legislation. We want to build on Commissioner Jourova's report and the European Banking Authority's analysis to make a more proportionate approach. As a first step, we plan to adjust the Capital Requirements Regulation and its sister directive in this area. None of this makes us any less committed to completing gaps in our regulatory architecture. Money market funds is a good example of legislation we want to see adopted, and we are hopeful an agreement can be reached by the end of the year. Our goal is to strike the right balance between making money market funds more resilient while securing their role in financing Europe's economy. Work continues to determine whether the European Union should allow fund managers from a number of countries outside the EU to operate here under the AIFMD rules. We have now received comprehensive advice from ESMA and are giving it careful consideration. Before granting passports to fund managers in these countries, we need to assess the entire set of criteria laid down in AIFMD. In the meantime, a number of national private placement regimes remain open to third country managers, and our feedback from operators is that these are working reasonably well. The European Commission is also fully engaged in the work of Financial Stability Board to identify structural vulnerabilities in the asset management sector that could pose a systemic risk. We are looking forward to this work being completed by the end of the year. But compared with other jurisdictions, European asset managers are already subject to very detailed regulatory requirements to mitigate systemic risk. This is the case for both UCITS and alternative investment funds. If weaknesses remain, we will work to address them, but we want to keep regulatory burden to a minimum. In recent years, much has been done to strengthen consumer protection, to increase transparency and give consumers the information and certainty they need to invest. Legislation on packaged retail and insurance-based investment, or so-called PRIIPs products, was part of this push. Its goal was to enable investors to compare products more easily through key information documents or kits. It would introduce common standards for presenting information for a wide range of investment projects. The European Parliament last month expressed its dissatisfaction with the delegated regulation containing PRIIPs regulatory technical standards. The European Commission has carefully assessed the European Parliament's resolution on this subject. We are working with the European supervisory authorities to address these concerns and ensure that regulatory technical standards can be reproposed by the end of the year. To get a clear picture on consumers' investment products across the board, we are taking forward a comprehensive assessment of retail investment markets. We want to look at the different stages in the development, advice, marketing, and sale of these products, and identify ways to improve outcomes for consumers. We will also ask the ESAs to look at the transparency of long-term retail investment and pension products, and to perform an analysis of their actual net performance and fees. Returns on retail investment products and pensions can be heavily influenced by fees levied by asset managers and intermediaries. The right data on the net performance and fees of the most commonly sold products is important. We need it to ensure more competition and better service for consumers. Our approach on the asset management sector is one that fits into a broader agenda. It is the agenda of the European Commission determined to take a single market a step further. The European Commission believes this is the best way to improve the investment environment, increase the European economy's competitiveness, and to deliver the best possible returns for investors and savers. European asset managers have valuable expertise. We have an opportunity to build on this, to unleash the single market's full potential and support growth in Europe. This is an opportunity with which your help we would like to seize. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. You stay here, please. And je vais appeler maintenant Pierre Bollon, donc, qui est délégué général de l'AFG. Il va vous poser donc maintenant quelques questions au nom de la profession. Pierre, donc je vous cède ma place.
Merci Isabelle. Thank you very much for coming today. It's the first official appearance in Paris since you've taken the burden, I would say, or the task of Lord Hill. So thank you very much for coming today. We heard a very nice word, music to our ears, like proportionate regulation, keep the regulatory burden to a minimum. That's words we like. You know, there's many things that still to be done, though. In the previous roundtable, there was questions or discussions about Brexit and the passports. So maybe you can give us in advance what will be the main lines of reasoning of the European Commission. On CMU, many good things, Capital Market Union, especially for us, the PEP, the Pan-European Personal Pension. So, as you said, it is in the action plan and it is in the paper you published 2 weeks ago. So what can we do? Because they are very supportive of PEP. So what can we do to help the European Commission to progress? And finally, there's PRIPS and the European Financial Transaction Tax, which are seen from us as a not so good... PRIPS, it's a very good idea, but it's in the implementation. EFTT, it's not good for the asset management industry. It was also said in the previous roundtable. So thank you very much, PEP, PRIPS, and European roundtable. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much for those questions. So first on the outcome of British referendum and potential implications for passport. Well, first it's now the strategic choice UK government needs to take. Whether its intention is for UK to remain within EU internal market or leave also the internal market. And this choice has clear implications for passporting. At this stage, we are not aware, not quite clear which direction UK government will go. Therefore, we encourage actually UK government to minimize this period of uncertainty and to provide some guidance for the further work. And of course, full clarity or more clarity will come with UK's notification according to the Article 50 of the treaty, which is then the real start of negotiations. But one thing is clear. If UK wants to remain within the EU internal market, there are certain conditions which have to be respected. Respect for the 4 freedoms of the internal market, financial contribution to the EU, and respect for the EU regulatory basis. So this is the basic principles of those negotiations. Then for a passporting, if the UK remains within the internal market, it has less implications. Also, the financial sector can retain its passports. Should UK move outside of the internal market, of course, this question of passporting will come, and probably the closest thing to the passporting is equivalence, something which is also, for example, now discussed with a number of other legislations. Well, this work is also then still ongoing. As regards, for example, the AIFMD passport specifically, we have received the advice from ESMA on a number of jurisdictions, and we are currently considering the way forward. Then on the second question on pan-European pension products. Well, thank you very much for your support. This is very encouraging to hear. We are, as we said, we are currently considering the way forward, and we have launched the public consultation. And the consultation is open till the end of October. So first and foremost, I would encourage then also you as industry representatives to provide your feedback in this consultation, provide your suggestions so that we can use it in our further work. Then as regards PRIPS. Well, on PRIPS, I think we should be clear about the basic principles of this proposal. And this is to provide clarity for retail investors, clarity on costs and clarity on risks. And so it will be difficult to agree to proposals that we should hide this cost here or not flag this risk there. I think retail investors need the clarity on full costs of the products they are buying and of the potential risks. We know in previous times there had been also cases of mis-selling and other bad practices. So from European Commission perspective, we think this legislation is very much needed and intend to move ahead with this. Of course, we are aware by the reservations raised by European Parliament, so we are assessing their reservations, and as I said, we will be working to actually table the regulatory technical standards by the end of the year. We also heard the demands from the European Parliament and the Council to delay the legislation. We are considering our position on this and reflecting for a best possible course of action for consumers. Thank you.